Welcome, ground passers. We are here for your sort of slam catch-up episode as usual, and you might have to forgive us for being maybe a little lower energy tonight. Tonight, from my perspective, I don't know if it's quite nighttime for Anastasia yet, but yes, it is very late for me when we're recording. Anastasia's been busy all day, which we will get to hear about in a minute, and also we're both a little bit sad.
All of the above. That is exactly what's happening right now. Nick, how are you in general? I know it is late for you, but how has the day of tennis been other than the last maybe hour or so?
The day of tennis was pretty good. I was super hyped for today, as we all know. When we did our watch list, I basically went, all of it, give me all of it. Nom, 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 nom. And again, ignoring the last hour, pretty much lived up to the billing in different ways. Yes, some of the matches maybe weren't classics, but I found them fascinating in different ways. So yeah, I've had a great tennis day. Aside from sadness.
And if anyone's watching this on YouTube, first of all, please like and subscribe. We have gotten, I think the last time I looked, Nick, we're like up to 650 subscribers, which is super cool. And we started to get comments and messages, and I almost wake up every morning and I look and I see who I should reply to. So it's been really fun. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you see that my background is very different. That is because I am in Newport, Rhode Island for the Newport Open. We will talk about that at the end of this episode. We just want to sort of jump right into Wimbledon and what has been going on. And I think, Nick, we should just work our way backwards, like start from the end of today and then work our way into tomorrow. This is our round 4 wrap up. So the quarterfinals have been set on both sides. And Nick, I just don't think there's anywhere else to start but the match between Grigor Dimitrov and Jannik Sinner.
Yeah, so this is why we're sad. Maybe a lot of you would have seen it in case you missed it or you missed all the news. Grigor Dimitrov played amazing for 2 sets to get himself 2 sets to love against Jannik Sinner. He was playing so well, like crazy good, and was serving out of his mind, serving probably the hardest he's ever served, which may have come back to bite him. Because at 2 games all in the 3rd set, leading Jannik Sinner 2 sets to love in what would probably been the biggest win of his career, certainly not beaten the world number 1 at Grand Slam before, he serves an ace and falls to the ground in intense pain, clutching his pec. After a medical assessment, it was very clear that he could not continue. The man could not lift his right arm, shake hands. The match was over, and it's one of the very, very rare and very sad instances where a player has to retire and concede the match despite the fact they were leading it.
Yeah.
It was no guarantee he was going to win it. I think Sinner was building up for something to pull off, to try to attempt to come back. But the way Dimitrov was playing, I think there was definitely a very high possibility that he could have handled it. And we'd be talking about a very different quarterfinal lineup now. And we'd be certainly talking about one of the biggest upsets the Wimbledon would have seen in the men's draw for several years.
Yeah. This is rough. This is really, really bad. I posted to our socials that this is the saddest I've ever been watching this sport. And that's saying a lot. If you don't know the history of Grigor Dimitrov, when he was coming on the scene, everyone used to call him baby fed because he had a one-handed backhand and played, he kind of gave the sort of feeling of Roger Federer, that beautiful sort of style of play. And he's just one of those who kind of never made it. Not never made it because he's still a pro tennis player and he's still going on, but he didn't win the Grand Slams that everyone thought that he might win, but he still had a beautiful game early on in his career, winning titles, and it was just like beautiful to see someone play that way. He might have been burdened a little bit by the moniker of baby fed, but he's been in and out of injury, and it's always great seeing him come back playing well, because when Grigor Dimitrov is playing well, he beats Carlos Alcaraz. He beats the best in the game. And it's such a joy to watch. And, like I said, I'm in the Newport Open, so I wasn't paying close attention to this match until I started getting so many text messages saying, are you seeing what Grigor's doing? Are you seeing? And I look at my phone and he's leading. He won the first set. I'm like, oh my goodness, he won the first set. But then again, you're sort of like, oh, someone can get hot for one set and, but they end up losing the match. But then he won the second set. And I literally stopped what I was doing. I was like, you know what? This is an important moment in this sport. Grigor Dimitrov is 2 sets up against Jannik Sinner, the number 1 in the world, who everyone up until this point just felt he felt impenetrable. He felt undefeatable, and I went into the press office here and I put on the match on my iPad and I sat down for the third set, super excited, and then was immediately just crushed when that injury happened to Grigor. And another part of the sadness of this is Grigor has retired now from, I think, his last 5 Grand Slam tournaments. The last one he retired weirdly against Ethan Quinn at Roland Garros, and he was leading 2-1. And he had to retire with a leg injury. So I get it. It's sports, and sports isn't fair. It is what it is. It's whoever wins on the day. But I listened to a little bit of Jannik Sinner's press afterwards, and he said, "I can't even call this a win," and it's just a really sad moment seeing someone in full flight doing the improbable, and then be struck down like that. It's pretty brutal.
It is brutal, and it's very rare that it happens when they're winning. So, I think there's been some scrambling to figure out whether this has happened before. We think it's happened to Dimitrov before. 2020 Roland Garros, he was leading 2-0 against Marcos Giron and retired. There was also a match in 2014 at the US Open, not involving Grigor Dimitrov, where that happened. It's actually the second brutal retirement of the day. I actually caught this match because I was trying to find a doubles match I was interested in watching, and I caught the end of a boys doubles match, and it was a Colombian player. He and his partner had to retire after winning the second set and taking it to deciding set tiebreak because his partner served a ball into the back of his head.
Oh.
And he had to be taken off court for a concussion assessment and then had to default the match. It's weird that today is the day where that happened, that both these things have happened. Yeah, Dimitrov, it's just so sad, and everyone's really gutted for him, including Jannik. And by the way, Jannik is an absolute class act in the way that he handled the whole situation, saying it doesn't feel like a win, giving full credit to Dimitrov, making it all about his performance. He carried Dimitrov's bags off court with him, because he couldn't carry it himself. His arm was, he couldn't lift his arm. I'm not a medical expert, but I would not be surprised if it's some kind of rupture or tear. When it gets announced in the next couple of days, I imagine he's going to get scanned tomorrow, and then he'll decide when he releases that on social media.
Right.
If I'm right in that, it's not tennis's finest moment. And I guess one of the other things that's kind of interesting now is, where does Sinner go with this now? Because in his mind, he might not deserve to be in this tournament anymore. How does he reset? And how do his potential opponents see things? Because they might see him as being particularly vulnerable. And boy, if anyone likes a chance, it's his next opponent, which is Ben Shelton.
Yeah.
Which is going to be an explosive match anyway. But I actually do think Shelton's got a real chance at this one.
Yeah, no, same. That's a really good way of putting it, because, I do generally think like Grigor was on a tear, and yes, you can never be 100% sure that someone would have won a match, but he definitely was looking like that. And just because of the way it ended, you are right that Sinner might have a little bit of a hangover from this one. And, moving into the next match that happened today, the one between Lorenzo Sonego and Ben Shelton, I was driving into Rhode Island this morning, so I didn't really watch any matches. I did listen to a few on the radio. So I listened to this Ben Shelton and Lorenzo Sonego match. I also did that for Mirra Andreeva and Emma Navarro. What other match did I catch on the way in? There was one, we'll get to it definitely, Djokovic and Alex de Minaur match. But it definitely seems that Lorenzo Sonego has Ben Shelton's number. I mean, no, sorry, the opposite, the opposite way around. Ben Shelton has Lorenzo Sonego's number because this is the third time this year that they've met at a Grand Slam, and Ben Shelton wins the match. It seemed like he was in control for most of it.
Interesting you say that. What radio station to listen to that, by the way?
It's just like a ESPN
Okay.
audio kind of thing. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, didn't know that was a thing. I was curious whether it was Wimbledon radio, which you can get, like you get on the official Wimbledon app, and that's actually quite
Yeah,
good.
no, I didn't. I didn't listen to it on that. No.
Just in general, I recommend tennis on the radio if you can't watch because actually the radio coverage is often quite good. Tangent aside, it's interesting that that's the impression you got because when you look at the scoreline, it was 3-6, 6-1, 7-6, 7-5. And
Hmm.
Shelton might have Sonego's number, but he always takes a little bit to remember it. Which, let's face it, we've all been in that situation. Because I think, yeah, you're right. He did look good in that match, but I think Sonego, I don't think the third and fourth sets were easy for him by any means. Like he
Right.
was in full explosive flow at points, but he had to be because Sonego was making him need to do that. Where he really came into his own was in the third set tiebreak, which was pretty much perfect from him. And the fourth set, when he broke to win the set, was like he locked in and he got the job done in the clutch moments.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time, it was very nip and tuck. So it's very interesting that's the impression you got listening to the match. But yeah, I think as the match went on, particularly after that third set tiebreak, Ben was the clear favourite, but Sonego made him work for it.
Right, right. Yeah, I was very curious about this one if Sonego would do something different. But you're right, just listening to the commentator. And I guess that also then kind of informs you of sometimes, depending on what commentators you're listening to. Unfortunately, I don't remember who was commentating on this one, but it definitely, they were leaning more to sort of Shelton's looking good. This is what he's doing, especially that tie break. They were like, he was so good in the tie break and, did that. So it was very interesting listening to it. But I don't know. It was kind of, I almost remember more about the matches since I listened to them than if I watched them. Because, for example, so before I headed out this morning, and because, of course, the matches start very early for me, I did watch the Kaboli Chilich match, and I have a general impression of the match in general. But for example, I distinctly remember most of the back and flows of the fourth set of the Diminor Novak match because I listened to it and it was so it was sort of like Diminor had the early break and it was kind of like if he didn't hold on to that break, I just knew Djokovic was going to like run away with the fourth set and that would be it. I remember that. I really cannot remember the ebbs and flow of the Chilich match other than, nobody's been paying attention to Flavio Caboli and look at him now, quarterfinalist at Wimbledon.
Flavio Caboli has come through the section that everyone thought would be either Jack Draper or Alexander Bublik
Yep.
coming through that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or even Marin Cilic. And so, yeah, he's only dropped one set and he's had his serve broken twice in 4 matches,
Wow.
which is incredible. Kabali is on an insane run. I will say that the commentary on the Djokovic-De Minaur match was also spot on because, yeah, there was a sense that he needed to hang on to that break.
Yeah.
I thought it might be going 5, but yeah, once he conceded that break, it was very clear that Djokovic was probably going to win that match. Very odd match. That one, it has to be said, Djokovic took a while to get going. I think it was quite interesting when I was trying to hype up today's matches and I was getting people replying to me saying, what are you talking about? Jannik Sinner and Novak Djokovic are going to roll through their opponents. I was like, no, they did not.
No,
They
they did
really did
not.
not.
It was
De Minaur,
definitely, I think, the consensus that was going to happen, but nope, it didn't. Just like people
nope.
thought Marin Cilic would have totally taken out Flavio Caboli. Didn't happen either. So much for trying to predict tennis.
Yes, well, that's why we don't try doing that here.
Yeah.
So that's where we were at with kind of today's matches. The women's matches, I think it doesn't sound like you caught much of them, so I'll just give a quick summary of like they were all straight sets, different kinds of straight sets. Like Belinda Bencic needed 6 match points to get the job done. She
Wow.
served the
Okay.
match at 5-3, had 5 match points, got broken by Alexandrova, and then Alexandrova served to stay in the match, and Bencic got her next match point on Alexandrova's serve and was very relieved because it got very nervy for both players towards the end. And then you compare that with Mirra Andreeva and Iga Swiatek, who both Mirra Andreeva dissected Emma Navarro today. Dissected her, had her like a ball on a string running around trying to catch the ball, and was not, Emma was really struggling to deal with it. And Iga Swiatek just seems to like playing on grass now, and Clara Towson just couldn't seem to hurt her, which is interesting given Towson's a player I would have thought would have been able to. But I wanted to kind of use this opportunity to say, you and Mitch talked about Iga Swiatek is looking sneaky good on grass right now. So is Mirra Andreeva. Mirra Andreeva hasn't dropped a set, and her sets have been a lot more convincing than some other people in the draw at the moment. She's loving being able to put the ball wherever she needs it on a grass court right now. She played on centre court for the first time today in front of Roger Federer.
Wow, that was her first time?
First time on centre court today, and it was in front of Roger Federer. And yeah, so she acknowledged him and Mirka in her winners interview on court, to the point of she just basically addressed them directly and said, "Roger, I've always wanted to meet you in person. Mirka, you look lovely." Which is such a Mirra Andreeva thing of just no filter.
She's the best.
So yeah, that's kind of bringing you up to speed on maybe what's happened in the women's matches today. There was another one as well. Oh, Samsonova through as well in an interesting 7-5, 7-5 match, that two very different 7-5 scores. But that's what I'm saying. But yeah, Mirra Andreeva, very, very good at the moment. And I think right now, all eyes should be on her, Iga, and Arena, who also hasn't dropped a set. And I know we're kind of getting to Eliese at this point, but I do want to say, how has Arena Sabalenka not dropped a set? Because she is just at the moment refusing to lose sets. Because Elise Mertens pushed her hard. And that was a great match to watch, despite the fact it didn't go 3. Very similar to that Raducanu match that Sabalenka played.
Yeah.
And if Sabalenka's just refusing to lose sets, good luck to anyone the rest of this tournament.
Yeah, she's definitely trying to, it seems like, make a point. But before we jump into yesterday's matches, I definitely want to say I did listen to a bit of that Navarro Mirra Andreeva match, and you are right in the sense that I was not expecting anything from Mirra Andreeva this tournament, especially based on her grass court season, like the short one she had. I think she lost early in all the tournaments she played, and was also looking like not having a good time. I think I did mention this in the round 3 roundup with Mitch, that she just looked really upset all the time. And I thought, you know what? It's not going to be this one. And it's kind of crazy how she's reset, but also is now good on grass. It's actually quite surprising. I'm not really sure what to make of it, but it's nice to see that she is just doing well, because she's always a fun character to have in the draw. And, she gives great interviews and things like that. But in terms of yesterday's matches, yesterday I think was definitely a lot more quiet or straightforward. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yes and no. It depends which matches you... The ones that didn't involve... Well, okay, no worries. I don't think Sabalenka's match was as straightforward as the score looked.
No, yes, definitely not. No.
But we've already alluded to that. And I will also say that the Brits matches were not that straightforward either.
Well, I totally forgot about Norrie and Jari. You're right. Okay, I take it back.
Norrie and Jari went 5 sets, for those of you who don't know, and you probably would have heard of it at this point. And there was some interesting back and forth with Jari, who did not like the amount of times that Cam Norrie was bouncing the ball. But then you've also got Jari saving match points in the 3rd set, taking it to a 5th, and then Norrie locking in and getting it at the end. And, we're going to plug something that Anastasia did for our daily recaps that she's been doing, because you basically spent the entire recap for yesterday talking about electronic line calling.
Yes. So, I mean, maybe we should start there with the electronic line calling. It was definitely a moment for electronic line calling. It was during the Sonet Cartel and Anastasia Polyuchenkova match. A ball was clearly out. Before that ball was even out, the umpire had been, and it's funny because I was watching this match, I was very interested in seeing how Sonet would do, and he had been calling the lines, and then this was the 3rd time it happened. And at first I didn't realize it was the 3rd time. I just realized the point before he called the line, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know. I thought he was just chiming in. And then he called this one out, and then he stopped the match. And I was like, oh, what's going on? they show the replay. I mean, it's like this far out, and there's clearly, it seems like something wrong with the electronic line calling. They figure it out, and then they say replay the point, which at the time I was kind of like, okay, I guess that's brutal a bit, but I wasn't really too crazy about it. I was like, okay, I guess they're going to replay the point. When I started to get worried was when Anastasia Polichenkova lost that point and then lost the game. And I thought, wait a second, if Sané wins this match, I was a bit worried for her and just like the narrative that would come out of it. Like, oh, this point, if the point had gone to Anastasia Polichenkova, you know, she might have won, blah, blah, blah. So that was definitely all the stuff surrounding it. Where I fall, and I don't know what, you know, I'll let you say what you think. I'm all for electronic line calling. I think for the betterment of the sports in general, I think it's best to go to electronic line calling instead of dealing with challenges and you're all standing there looking at the umpire and then looking at a mark on the ground, and it's too much sometimes. But I think for this sort of transition period, it would be nice to maybe have some human, you know, checks with it. So we have sort of a hybrid mix of electronic line calling and line judges. But at the same time, this failure in the electronic line calling was a human error. It was because someone didn't turned off the machine. And you're sort of like, well, so the electronic line calling system itself was working, but a human being, I still don't know how, turned it off.
Someone must have put a coffee mug on the button or something.
See? Yeah, it's the coffee, man. I get it. I love coffee. I understand.
Yeah, that's the most obvious thing I can think of. Your stance on electronic line calling in terms of why it's needed, I completely agree with. It's my stance too. That's where tennis should move, is 100% electronic line calling. Because there's lots of reasons why I like it. One, I think it makes the matches run smoother in the way that you've described. There's fewer stoppages to try and figure out what the right answer to whether it's in or out is. It's wrong less often than a human. I'm not saying it's never wrong, and I will never claim that electronic line calling is 100% foolproof, because they have instances where they need to realign stuff. And I also think what I've noticed is that some borderline points that might have been called out, you know, they're not, like the ball, when the ball's just clipping the line, it just increases the margin of success, which makes points more exciting, because you've now got these off the line moments that makes players carry on, and it makes the rallies a bit more interesting and encourages players to take risks a bit more. So
Yeah.
all for electronic line calling. I think the hybrid version you propose is a little bit too complicated, in my view. I think having the umpires just call the scores when it's obviously out is the obvious solution, and that's what they're doing anyway. Because I've been seeing that through the tournament as well. Like, I've watched a few matches on court 2, and there's been a few times where the ball's landed like well beyond the baseline, almost towards the back, and the umpires called it out. And my theory for that was it was obviously out of sight of the electronic line calling, so the umpire had to say it was out. That's my only theory with that anyway. Either that or there was a bit of a glitch. But if you watch like the Challenger Tour, quite often the umpire's the one calling the lines. So
Yeah.
I don't necessarily I think it would be a more expensive and a more complicated solution to have line judges on, just in case the system doesn't work. I think the umpire should just step in and call it out, which, by the way, is what should have happened with that Cartel point, is that it should have just gone to Pavlyuchenkova. It didn't matter, because Pavlyuchenkova just broke straight back and won the set anyway.
Yeah.
But regardless of who won that match, it ended up being the story, which is a shame. And I hope we don't see that again, because, this was almost like the biggest possible stage where it could have happened. And you don't want people suggesting that things got manipulated to help the Brit, which could have been really, really nasty. We're all for electronic line calling, and it works so long as nobody spills their coffee.
Blame it on the coffee. Yeah, so I mean, we've kind of mentioned a little bit. I think the Nicholas Jarry match in Cameron Norrie, that was definitely the exciting, fun 5-set, crazy one. I think Carlos Alcaraz and Rublev had a bit of danger for like a set, but not really. It was,
Didn't Rublev go break in the third? Or threaten to?
I can't remember if he did now, but there was just something about that.
I think the fourth, because I did catch this one was like, I think the fourth, he was threatening to break in the fourth as well. It did feel like Alcaraz broke right towards the end of that match, and I was watching it going, is this going 5?
I don't know. There was something about that second set basically his response to losing the first, especially since he lost the first set in a tiebreak. So he was pretty close. And the way he just won that second set, I just didn't see Carlos losing from there. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It was very interesting because literally after the second set, I kind of tapped out. I was like, okay. I was like,
And
it's
I
fine.
guess we're watching from different perspectives because I actually turned on the match in midway through the third set.
Yeah.
So I got a very different experience of watching it. So I didn't
That's
see
very
Rublev.
interesting, actually, that we could have totally different perspectives of a match depending on when we jumped in. I love that. That's actually very interesting.
It's true, isn't it? Because yeah, I didn't see Carlos easily winning the second set, but I saw him like Rublev fighting his hardest to not lose the third and fourth.
Yeah.
There was another match happening at the same time. I think I might have been paying more attention to that as well, which was the Anasimova beating Noskova match, which was fun as anything.
So, you
That
know
was
what? Talk about that one a little bit because weirdly, I kind of started it a little bit and then Amanda Anasimova just looked so good and she took the first set. So I kind of tuned out of it and then only to like come back to it and realize that it went three. Like I was shocked that it went three because after the first set, I was kind of like, oh, well, that's not as exciting as I thought it was going to be. So I tuned out and then I saw the scores later and I was like, wait, this match went three?
yeah. So I wasn't surprised because Anasimova won the first set 6-2, but Noskova was making it so hard for her to break. It was such a good performance from Amanda. Two breaks served twice. And then the second set was really, really close. I think Noskova was up a break and then Amanda got her back. And then, no, I mean, Amanda might have been up a break and then Noskova broke and then got the set. And then Noskova goes a break up in the third very early on. And we're like, oh, she's turning this around here. And then Amanda Anisimova breaks back. And it was a very nip and tuck match, definitely during the second and third sets, but I'd say even a little bit during the first as well. And what decided it in the end was Amanda Anisimova raised her level right at the end, right at the moment where she needs to win the match. And Noskova missed a critical forehand in the last game that set up match point for Anisimova. And that was the
Yeah.
key difference. That was literally what decided the match, was Anisimova started going for it. Noskova made one mistake and paid for it. And so
Yeah. Wow.
it was an exciting match. It was definitely, of the women's matches, the one that was the most gripping.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think what I've learned from just this like last bit of this conversation here is, you know, there are ebbs and flows to tennis,
Mm.
and if you're new to it and you're watching it, it might seem like it's going one way and then flip of a switch and it's going the other way. And you can have completely different ideas of a match depending on when you jump into it or not. And I think that's really great to understand if you're coming into tennis and like trying to figure it out. And, you can't walk away sometimes. You can't walk away and just be like, oh, this looks fine. Everything's hunky dory. There are definitely ebbs and flows that can totally flip a match on its head. But yeah, so that's pretty much the fourth round. The quarterfinals are set. They're pretty exciting. Any sort of what are your most like two of your most exciting, if you can only pick two of your most exciting quarterfinal matchup?
Okay, two. So I've got three, so I need to pick which one I'm not going to say.
No,
Uh,
say all three.
all three? Okay. So I've got two women's and one men's.
Okay.
Now, there's the one which is my head pick, which is Swiatek Samsonova, because that one, you've got two players who are looking pretty good on grass at the moment, going head to head. And I'd say that is the players closest in terms of high level form meeting each other. And I'm very intrigued to see how Swiatek deals with yet another big hitter. I'm interested to see how Samsonova deals with the pressure of being in a first Grand Slam quarterfinal. But they're both playing really, really well. I mean, all eight players are playing really, really well. But it's kind of this, these are the two players who combined have the biggest momentum out of the four matchups. My heart is Anisimova Pavlyuchenkova, because this is both of their second Wimbledon quarterfinals. It's Anisimova's third Grand Slam quarterfinal, Pavlyuchenkova's 10th, which is, crazy. She's been around the slam, which is that consistent. But yeah, this is the second time they've both been to the Wimbledon quarterfinals. They've both lost their previous times they've been here. This is a massive opportunity for whichever one of them to make a Wimbledon semi-final for the first time. And I think, again, they're pretty closely matched in game styles and in terms of how they've been doing coming into this. So for that one, I think that there's going to be a lot more. That story has a lot of heart in it and emotion behind whoever's going to win it. And my third choice, which is probably going to be the same as yours, is Jannik Sinner against Ben Shelton, because that dynamic just got a lot more fascinating, because
Yeah.
Jannik Sinner a lot more vulnerable than we were expecting, and Ben Shelton is going to be absolutely going for it, guaranteed. He's been going for it every time they play each other, whether it was Wimbledon last year, Australian Open this year. This might be Ben's time, or Sinner might have one of the greatest bounce backs you will ever see. That storyline's going to be fascinating, and that's why I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, that's definitely on my list as well. There's just so much on the line. And I think it's going to say a lot about Jannik Sinner if he's able to bounce back. It will say a lot, because what he went through today was definitely pretty tough. I think he handled it very well, but still, to feel like you didn't win to get to where you are now can be pretty tough to recover from. So we'll see how he does. And then again, Ben Shelton, how does he come into this? He's lost all his other matches. Well, not all of them. I think he won one of them early on, but his last few matches against Jannik Sinner, he has lost. And it's definitely a head-to-head that he is looking to turn around. So should be very interesting to see that match. That's definitely top on the list. Next is Flavio Cobolli and Novak Djokovic, because who saw Flavio Cobolli being Djokovic's quarterfinal opponent? I can guarantee you that nobody did. And maybe except for the ATP social media team, because they made Flavio Cobolli the admin, and they must have seen something coming because this is pretty epic. So I will be watching that one. That is one I'm very, very excited for. And then on the women's side, Sabalenka and Laura Siegemund. I feel like this entire tournament has been one big test for Aryna Sabalenka. I think after the Roland Garros thing, it's been kind of like, how are you going to handle the pressure, Missy? And all the opponents that have been thrown at her have, in one way or another, tried to do that, and she's holding firm and not dropping sets. So it will be interesting how a crafty player like Laura Siegemund can kind of maybe add some spice to it and see what happens. So those are my three. Well, someone's gonna have to drop a set. Let's see who it is. Yeah, this has been an interesting recording. Definitely, I am still bummed. I am still a bit sad, and it's sport. And before jumping on this, I ran from the Newport Open. That is where I am for the next few days, and I just interviewed Elliot Spizzeri. He's someone who's been on a Meet the Players before, and he was one of the players that I talked to at the Champagne Challenger last November. So it was very interesting to sort of catch up with him, see what he's been up to since then. That will be coming to a Meet the Players episode soon. Not really sure when we're going to schedule it in, but follow along on all of our socials, and I'm sure I will put it out somewhere for you to watch. And things are about to get busy here on Ground Pass. We have a series called Ground Pass on Site. We talk about it a lot, and it is our Substack. So if you want to follow along with me on site behind the scenes of these tournaments, subscribe there. I'm going to try my best to just sort of compartmentalize everything. And if you want any sort of Ground Pass on Site content that's specifically behind the scenes of the tournaments, follow us over there and you will get all of that. It is free to subscribe, but if you want to become a paying subscriber and, help us keep running Ground Pass, that would be greatly appreciated too. Yeah. So Nick, we'll do this again after the quarterfinals. Yeah. And we will catch up on all the stuff. This Wimbledon, wow, it has not, there hasn't been a let up. I feel like we started with a bang and we're still in the bang. It's still going.
It's such a good Wimbledon. It's such a good Wimbledon this year. It's been one of the best phases, and I am so grateful that I took 2 weeks off work to watch all of it.
Yeah.
Well, as much as I could get away with, anyway. So
yeah,
I'm very happy that this is delivered, and I just want to say also I'm looking forward to hearing all about Newport, because I saw that one photo of it you put on our social media and was like, I need Anastasia to tell me all about this place.
It is, I've never been at a grass court tournament before, and it's so different. It is so different. So excited to talk about all of it, and tell you about it if you haven't been to a grass court tournament. And all of the stuff will start coming out soon. Newport goes till Sunday, this Sunday. So if you're in the East Coast, I drove up from New York today. If you're in the area at all, it's definitely worth the visit. It is a tiny, small, intimate venue. And boy, do I love these small tournaments. They just have a homey vibe that I really, really like. So yeah, thank you guys for listening to this short recap of round 4. Wimbledon keeps kicking our butts, but we're loving it. And we'll see you sometime soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.